Welcome, everyone. I'm Ralph Clayton, host of the VTM podcast. This is episode 17. Today, I want to take you into one of the most important energy questions of our time. Next generation nuclear power, advanced reactors, small modular reactors, safety, waste, and the enormous new electricity demand being created by artificial intelligence. This is not simply a story about nuclear plants. It is not simply a story about new technology. And it is not only a story about climate, data centers, or the race to power the digital economy. At its deepest level, this episode asks one dangerous question. Can civilization build the electricity it now demands without lying to itself about the cost? Because for most people, electricity feels invisible. It is there when the screen wakes. It is there when the phone charges. It is there when a factory runs through the night. It is there when a hospital ventilator keeps breathing for someone who cannot. It is there when a train moves, when water is pumped, when food is cooled, when messages cross oceans, when money moves, when cities glow. Modern life does not merely use electricity. Modern life assumes electricity. And that assumption is now being tested. Because artificial intelligence is not only a software revolution, it is a physical event. It needs land, it needs chips, it needs water, it needs cooling, it needs transmission lines, and above all, it needs power. Not occasional power, not symbolic power, not power that exists only when the weather is generous. It needs electricity at industrial scale, around the clock, with extremely high reliability. That is why the conversation around nuclear energy has changed so quickly. For years, nuclear power was treated in many countries as an aging technology. Too expensive, too slow, too politically difficult, too haunted by old accidents, too burdened by waste. But now the world is entering a different electricity era. Grids are being asked to do everything at once. They must decarbonize. They must replace coal and gas. They must absorb electric vehicles. They must electrify industry. They must support heat pumps. They must withstand heat waves. They must defend against cyber attacks. And now they must feed the growing machine of artificial intelligence. This is where next generation nuclear power re-enters the story. Not as a simple answer, not as a miracle, not as a machine that erases every trade off, but as one of the few technologies capable of producing large amounts of firm, low-carbon electricity without depending on weather. That matters, because the energy transition is not only about producing clean electricity. It is about producing clean electricity when it is needed, at the scale required, in the places where demand is actually growing, and with enough reliability that hospitals, factories, data centers, homes, and national grids can trust it. This is the first lesson. The future does not only need more energy, it needs more dependable energy. Solar and wind are now essential parts of the world's electricity system. They are growing quickly. They are cheaper than many people once believed possible. They are central to decarbonization. But they do not remove the need for firm power. They change the shape of the need. A grid with more renewables also needs storage, transmission, flexible demand, backup generation, long-duration balancing, and sources that can run when the sun is gone, the wind is low, and demand is still rising. That is where nuclear power becomes difficult to ignore. A nuclear plant does not care whether it is night. It does not care whether clouds arrive. It does not care whether a winter high pressure system stills the wind. It sits there hour after hour, making heat, and from that heat, electricity. This is the old strength of nuclear power. But the old nuclear model has problems. Large reactors can generate enormous power, but they are expensive. They are complex. They require deep regulatory experience. They require specialized supply chains. They can take many years to build. In some countries, they have become symbols of delay, cost overrun, and political conflict. That is why the next generation nuclear conversation is not only about building more of the old model. It is about asking whether nuclear power can be made smaller, safer, faster, more flexible, and easier to repeat. This is the promise of small modular reactors, SMRs. The phrase sounds modest. Small. Modular. But each word carries a major ambition. Small means the unit is physically and electrically smaller than a traditional large nuclear plant. Many SMR concepts are designed below 300 megawatts of electric output per module. That is still a lot of power, but it is not a giant 1-gigawatt reactor. It is a unit that may fit more easily into smaller grids, industrial sites, remote regions, former coal plant locations, or large power-hungry campuses. Modular means the design is supposed to be repeatable. Components can be manufactured in factories. Modules can be shipped. Construction can become more like assembly and less like inventing a cathedral every time. And reactor means the basic physics remains nuclear fission. Atoms split. Heat is produced. That heat is used to generate power. The hope is that SMRs can change the economics of nuclear energy. Not because a small reactor is automatically cheaper per unit of electricity. In fact, smaller plants can lose some economies of scale. The hope is different. The hope is repetition, standardization, factory learning, shorter construction schedules, lower upfront capital per project, a design that can be ordered not once, but dozens of times. Because nuclear economics are brutal, when every project is unique. If every reactor is a custom artifact, costs rise. If every site becomes a new engineering adventure, schedules slip. If every licensing process starts from scratch, investors hesitate. But if the same design can be built again and again, with the same supply chain, the same components, the same construction methods, and the same operating knowledge, then the cost curve may bend. That is the central economic gamble behind SMRs. They are not really about being small. They are about being repeatable. And that is also the central risk. Because if SMRs do not become repeatable, they may simply become small, expensive reactors. That is the hard truth. A modular reactor without a real factory pipeline is not yet a revolution. It is a prototype. And prototypes are expensive. This is why the next few years matter so much. The nuclear industry does not only need beautiful designs. It needs completed projects. It needs supply chains. It needs licensed fuel. It needs trained workers. It needs customers willing to sign contracts. It needs regulators who can review new technologies seriously without either strangling them in delay or waving them through carelessly. It needs public trust. And trust is the hardest material in nuclear energy. Harder than concrete. Harder than steel. Harder than zirconium. Because public trust is built slowly and lost quickly. That is why safety is not a marketing feature. It is the foundation. Next, generation nuclear designs often emphasize passive safety. This means they are designed to rely less on active pumps, powered systems, and constant operator intervention during certain accident scenarios. They may use natural circulation, gravity, convection, materials that tolerate higher temperatures, fuel forms that retain radioactive material more effectively, coolants such as helium, molten salt, sodium, or lead. Designs that can shut themselves down through physics, rather than panic. The goal is simple to say and difficult to engineer. Make the reactor safe. Not only when everything works, but when things begin to fail. That is the right ambition, because nuclear history teaches one unforgiving lesson. Accidents are not caused only by broken machines. They are caused by broken assumptions. A design assumes power will be available. Then power is lost. A system assumes operators will understand the signal. Then the signal is confusing. A plant assumes flooding will not reach a certain level. Then the water rises higher. A regulator assumes the risk is remote. Then the remote thing arrives. So next generation safety must be deeper than confidence. It must be humility built into hardware. That is what passive safety tries to do. It asks, what happens if the pumps stop? What happens if external power is lost? What happens if operators are delayed? What happens if cooling is interrupted? What happens if the unexpected becomes real? But even here, we must be careful. No reactor is safe because a brochure says it is safe. No reactor is safe because it is small. No reactor is safe because it is new. Safety comes from physics, engineering, manufacturing quality, regulation, emergency planning, security culture, maintenance, inspection, and honest operations. It comes from layers, defense in depth. A reactor should not depend on one perfect barrier. It should have many imperfect barriers, each prepared for the failure of another. Fuel, cladding, coolant, containment, passive heat removal, physical security, monitoring, operator training, emergency systems, regulatory oversight. A serious nuclear culture does not ask the public to trust one promise. It builds a chain of protections. That is what advanced reactors must prove. Not that they sound safer, that they are safer under scrutiny. There are several major families of next-generation nuclear technology. Some SMRs are advanced versions of light water reactors. These are closer to the reactors already operating around the world. They use water as coolant and moderator. Their advantage is familiarity. Regulators understand them better. Supply chains understand them better. Operators understand them better. They may be easier to license than more exotic designs. Other advanced reactors are high-temperature gas reactors. These often use helium as coolant and special fuel particles designed to contain fission products at very high temperatures. Their promise is not only electricity, it is industrial heat. That matters because many industrial processes need heat, not just electrons. Steel, chemicals, hydrogen, refining, heavy industry. If nuclear energy can provide clean high-temperature heat, it can reach parts of decarbonization that wind and solar electricity alone do not easily solve. Then there are sodium-cooled fast reactors. These can operate with fast neutrons and potentially use fuel more efficiently. Some designs pair the reactor with thermal storage, allowing the reactor to run steadily while electricity output varies with grid demand. That idea is important because future grids may not only need plants that run constantly, they may need plants that cooperate with renewables. A reactor that produces steady heat while storage shapes the electric output could become more flexible than the old base load model. Then there are molten salt reactors. In some concepts, the fuel is dissolved in salt. In others, salt is only the coolant. These designs promise high temperature operation, low pressure systems, and different safety characteristics. They are exciting. They are also technically demanding. Molten salts interact with materials. Corrosion must be solved. Chemistry must be controlled. Licensing must catch up. Operating experience must be built. Then there are microreactors, very small nuclear units. Some are imagined for remote communities, military bases, mines, disaster recovery, or isolated industrial loads. Their promise is resilience, but their challenge is security, cost, transport, maintenance, and public acceptance. A tiny reactor is still a nuclear facility that cannot be waved away. This is the second lesson. Next generation nuclear is not one thing. It is a family of bets. Some are evolutionary. Some are radical. Some may arrive soon. Some may never become commercial. Some will work technically, but fail economically. Some will be safe, but too expensive. Some will attract customers before they have proven construction. Some may become transformative. This is why the conversation must avoid both extremes. The first extreme is nuclear fantasy. The belief that advanced reactors will simply appear cheaply and quickly, solving climate change, powering AI, eliminating waste, and ending energy scarcity. That is not analysis. That is wishful thinking. The second extreme is nuclear fatalism. The belief that because nuclear has problems, it has no future. That is also lazy. Because the world already uses nuclear power at enormous scale. It already provides a major share of low carbon electricity in many countries. It already operates with very high capacity factors. It already prevents large amounts of fossil generation. The real question is not whether nuclear energy can work. It already works. The real question is whether the next generation can be built fast enough, affordably enough, safely enough, and publicly enough to matter. That is a much harder question, and artificial intelligence is making it urgent. Because AI demand is not arriving politely. It is arriving like a new industrial sector. The data center used to be thought of as a hidden building full of servers. Now it is becoming a power plant's customer. A hyperscale data center can require hundreds of megawatts. A cluster of AI facilities can require gigawatts. This is no longer a minor load. This is grid, shaping demand. And the load is concentrated. That matters. A national grid might be able to handle growth on paper, but local transmission systems may not. A country might have enough annual generation, but not enough capacity in the region where data centers want to connect. A renewable project might generate enough electricity over a year, but not at the exact hours when a computation cluster needs power. So the AI boom is forcing a harder conversation. Where will the electricity come from? Who pays for the grid upgrades? Who bears the cost if data center demand raises prices for everyone else? Should tech companies build their own power supply? Should they sign long-term contracts with nuclear plants? Should they restart old reactors? Should they finance SMRs? Should they shift workloads to places with cleaner, stronger grids? This is not only an engineering question. It is a social question. Because electricity systems are shared systems. When a data center connects to a grid, it is not entering an empty room. It is entering a public bloodstream. Homes are there. Hospitals are there. Factories are there. Schools are there. Small businesses are there. The cost of serving new demand does not vanish. It is either paid honestly, or it is hidden in rates, congestion, reliability risk, and political anger. This is why nuclear power has become attractive to large technology companies. Not because they have suddenly become sentimental about reactors. Because they need firm, clean power. They need power purchase agreements that can last decades. They need electricity that can match their climate commitments. And they need reliability. An AI model does not train on slogans. A server does not run on intentions. A data center does not cool itself with press releases. It needs electrons. Every second. Every day. This is why we are seeing major technology companies sign nuclear deals. Some are linked to existing nuclear plants. Some are linked to restarts. Some are linked to future advanced reactors. Some are speculative. Some may not materialize. But the signal is unmistakable. The digital economy is beginning to understand that its cloud has a power cord. And that power cord must plug into something real. This brings us to one of the most important distinctions in the nuclear future. Existing reactors may matter before advanced reactors do. That may sound less exciting, but it is true. The fastest clean nuclear megawatt is often the one already built, extending the life of an existing plant, improving performance, preventing premature shutdown, restarting a recently closed unit where feasible, adding uprates, using existing grid connections, using trained workers, using established operating knowledge. These may deliver firm low carbon power sooner than first of kind advanced reactors. That does not make advanced reactors unimportant. It means the nuclear revival has two tracks. The near track is the current fleet. The long track is the next generation. One preserves what already works. The other tries to build what comes after. A serious energy strategy needs both. But it also needs honesty about waste. Because no nuclear conversation is complete without it. Spent nuclear fuel is not a myth. It is real. It is intensely radioactive. It produces heat. It must be shielded. It must be cooled at first. It must be stored securely. And for high-level waste, the time horizons are far beyond normal politics. This is one of nuclear energy's deepest moral challenges. It produces a small volume of waste compared with the vast physical waste. streams of many other energy sources. But the waste it produces demands seriousness across generations. That is the trade. Small volume, high responsibility. Today, spent fuel is commonly stored first in pools, and then, when appropriate, in dry casks. This is not chaos. It is regulated. It is engineered. It has decades of operating experience. But interim storage is not the same as a permanent political settlement. A serious nuclear future requires credible long-term disposal, deep geological repositories, clear consent processes, funding mechanisms, transport planning, security, institutional continuity, and public trust. Some countries have moved further than others. Finland has become the world's leading example in building a deep geological repository for spent fuel. Sweden is also moving forward. But in other countries, especially the United States, the politics of permanent disposal remain unresolved. That does not mean nuclear waste is unsolvable. It means it has not been politically solved everywhere. That distinction matters. Technically, deep geological disposal is one of the most studied waste solutions in the world. Politically, it is much harder, because no community wants to be told that it must carry the burden for everyone else. The waste question is not only about geology. It is about consent. This is where advanced reactors make promises that must be examined carefully. Some advanced reactors may use fuel more efficiently. Some may consume certain materials from spent fuel. Some may produce different waste forms. Some may reduce long-term radiotoxicity under specific fuel cycle assumptions. Some may produce more complicated waste streams. Some may require new enrichment levels. Some may use HALEU, high assay low enriched uranium, which is not yet widely available at commercial scale in many countries. So we must be precise. Advanced reactors may change the waste problem. They do not erase the responsibility. A reactor that produces less waste still produces waste. A reactor that uses recycled material still creates materials that need control. A reactor that changes the fuel cycle also changes safeguards, security, economics, and regulation. There is no version of nuclear power that frees society from stewardship. This is the third lesson. Nuclear energy is not clean because it has no consequences. It is clean because its consequences are concentrated, visible, regulated, and technically manageable when society remains serious. That seriousness must never be optional, because nuclear energy punishes unserious cultures. It punishes corruption. It punishes shortcuts. It punishes denial. It punishes political theater. It punishes underfunded regulators. It punishes companies that confuse investor excitement with engineering reality. It punishes countries that want prestige without maintenance. The atom is not impressed by speeches. It obeys physics. That is why the future of nuclear power depends as much on institutions as on reactors. A good reactor in a weak institution is a danger. A difficult technology in a strong safety culture can be managed. So when we talk about next generation nuclear, we are not only talking about machines. We are talking about the quality of civilization around the machine. Can it regulate? Can it inspect? Can it train? Can it finance? Can it remember? Can it tell the truth when something goes wrong? Can it build long-term systems in a short-term political world? This is why nuclear is such a revealing technology. It forces a society to show whether can think beyond the next election, the next quarterly report, the next headline, the next panic. And that is exactly why it matters now. Because AI-driven electricity demand is arriving inside societies that often struggle to plan 10 years ahead. But reactors are not 10 weak projects. Transmission lines are not 10 weak projects. Fuel supply chains are not 10 weak projects. Waste repositories are not 10 weak projects. A nuclear future must be built with time. And the AI future is demanding power now. That mismatch creates tension. It may also create opportunity, because large technology companies can sign long contracts. They can provide demand certainty. They can help finance first-of-a-kind projects. They can create the order books SMR developers need. They can pay for firm, clean power instead of simply consuming whatever the grid can spare. But they can also distort the system. If wealthy digital companies lock up clean electricity while ordinary customers face higher costs, the politics will become ugly. If AI growth forces gas plants to run longer while companies claim carbon-free progress on paper, the public will notice. If data centers arrive faster than transmission, local grids will strain. If nuclear promises are used as a delay tactic, while fossil generation fills the gap, emissions will rise. So the question is not whether AI should use nuclear power. The question is whether AI's power demand can be integrated honestly into the energy system, paid for honestly, planned honestly, measured honestly, and supplied honestly. That word matters. Honestly. Because the energy future is full of comforting lies. One lie says renewables alone can do everything everywhere without storage, transmission, land permitting, or backup. Another lie says nuclear alone can solve everything if people would just stop objecting. Another lie says natural gas is only a bridge, even when the bridge keeps getting extended. Another lie says AI will become so efficient that electricity demand will not matter. Another lie says the market will solve the grid without planning. But electricity is not magic. Every path has materials. Every path has land. Every path has politics. Every path has risk. Every path has cost. The mature question is not which technology is pure. None are pure. The mature question is which combination of technologies can deliver reliable, affordable, low carbon power with the least damage and the greatest accountability. In that combination, next generation nuclear may have a major role, especially for firm power, industrial heat, dense urban grids, data centers, former coal sites, remote regions, military and critical infrastructure, hydrogen production, desalination, and countries that need energy security without importing fossil fuels. But nuclear will have to earn that role. It will not be enough to say, SMRs are coming. They must arrive. It will not be enough to say advanced reactors are safer. They must prove it. It will not be enough to say waste is manageable. It must be managed. It will not be enough to say costs will fall. They must fall through real projects, not projections. It will not be enough to say AI needs power. The power must be built without forcing everyone else to carry hidden costs. This is the central tension of next generation nuclear. It is both promising and unfinished. It is both old and new. It carries the memory of past accidents and the hope of future grids. It offers firm, clean power, but asks for discipline. It offers density, but asks for trust. It offers continuity, but asks for stewardship. And maybe that is why nuclear power returns again and again to the center of modern energy debates. Because it represents the thing civilization wants most and fears most. Concentrated power, a small amount of matter, an enormous amount of energy, a machine that can light a city for decades, a waste form that must be guarded beyond the lives of those who benefit from it, a technology that can help decarbonize the future, a technology that must never be treated casually. This is not a reason to reject nuclear power. It is a reason to approach it with seriousness. The next generation of reactors should not be judged by hype. It should be judged by performance, construction time, cost, safety case, fuel availability, waste pathway, security, public consent, grid value, industrial usefulness, and the ability to repeat. Because one successful demonstration reactor is important. But it is not enough. A climate-relevant nuclear revival requires fleets. It requires learning. It requires manufacturing. It requires workers. It requires regulators who can move at the speed of competence, not the speed of panic, not the speed of obstruction, the speed of competence. That may be the most difficult speed in modern life. Too slow for hype, too fast for bureaucracy. But exactly what nuclear requires. So what is next generation nuclear power truly about? It is about electricity. But electricity is only the surface. It is about whether advanced societies can still build difficult things. It is about whether clean energy can be firm as well as renewable. It is about whether AI will force us to confront the physical reality behind the digital world. It is about whether small modular reactors can move from promise to production. It is about whether safety can be designed into physics and preserved through culture. It is about whether waste can be treated not as an embarrassment, but as a responsibility. It is about whether the future grid will be planned or merely overloaded. And it is about whether humanity can handle powerful tools without pretending they are harmless. The world is entering an electricity age, not just an information age, not just an AI age, an electricity age. The nations that understand this will build generation, storage, transmission, industry, and trust. The nations that do not will discover that digital ambition without physical power is only a dream with a server bill. Next generation nuclear may become one of the pillars of that age. Not the only pillar, not the perfect pillar, but perhaps a necessary one, if it is built carefully, if it is regulated honestly, if it is financed realistically, if it is connected to a real waste strategy, if it serves the public grid, not only private demand, if it earns trust not through slogans, but through operation. That is the standard. And it should be high, because the stakes are high. The electricity system is becoming the nervous system of civilization. AI will run through it. Industry will run through it. Transport will run through it. Heating will run through it. Security will run through it. Daily life will run through it. And if that system becomes fragile, everything built on top of it becomes fragile too. That is why the nuclear question is not behind us. It is ahead of us, sharper than before, more urgent than before, more complicated than before, and perhaps more necessary than before. I'm Ralph Clayton, host of the VTM podcast. Thank you for joining me for episode 17 and this look into next generation nuclear power. And remember, not every small reactor is a revolution. Not every clean megawatt is responsible if it forgets its waste. And not every future can be powered by pretending electricity comes from nowhere.